In this video, I want to change gears a little bit to talk about data manipulation. It's not a huge feature of this class, but it's very important to understand some of the basics of that, as it can be incredibly powerful. So I'm going to clear a bunch of this stuff out. Let's see here. There we go. I'm going to clear memory, and then I'm going to reload the Gapminder and Tidyverse libraries. And I'm going to get that Gapminder data into our memory. And last time we did this beautiful line graph of life expectancy by country, by continent, which was pretty cool. And this time, let's see how we could manipulate this data to make it more useful to us. So this is every country in the data set, not every country in the world, but most of the countries in the world from 1952 to 2007. But that might not actually be of interest. I might be interested, for example, in only looking at the changes in lifespan in the continent of Asia or in Afghanistan, or I want to compare the life expectancies of countries across, or continents in a particular year or set of years. And that's a really important thing, or I want to look at the relationship between GDP and life expectancy in a certain country. And the idea here is that, okay, well, we need to manipulate our data in some way to make that possible. So let's just take, for example, because it's the first in our data set, I want to look at the change in life expectancy in Afghanistan. And I also want to look at, say, the relationship between GDP and life expectancy in Afghanistan, or the relationship between population and life expectancy in Afghanistan. So the first thing I need to do is to make it so that Afghanistan is the only country in my data set. And this is pretty easy to do. I basically have to filter the data, and that's the command we're going to use. It's part of the tidyverse, part of dplyr. And it uses this symbol here, % greater than %. That's called the pipe, and it means and then. So I'm saying I'm going to create this object called data by taking the built-in Gapminder data, and then I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go to a new line. I'm going to say filter, oops, lowercase, filter. And that is going to say I only want certain rows from the data. I'm going to filter and say country equals Afghanistan. Did I spell that right? I'm going to run this. And now we see my data only has 12 observations. It's just the data from Afghanistan. And now if I run this code here, it's only going to show me the life expectancy for Afghanistan. I probably would want to change some things. I can get rid of the facet wrap by continent. I can make the line dark by getting rid of that alpha. I actually don't even need the group equals country anymore because there's only one country. So I'm going to rerun that, and now it's looking better. And I'll change the title. Afghanistan life expectancy. There we go. And now I can see in Afghanistan, in the 50s, a very low life expectancy of around, 28. By 2007, 44. So, almost doubling in 55 years. Pretty incredible. And that is all made possible by just doing this quick manipulation of my data, filtering it so that the country is only Afghanistan. Now, that's not the only thing I can do with data manipulation. That's easy enough, filtering, but let's say I want something else. I'm going to delete this, go back to my full data, and let's say I want the average. I want to basically collapse this, that instead of by country, I want it averaged across continents. So I just want to look at the continent level trends. This is also easy to do. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to put in the pipe. And then I'm going to say group by continent. Another pipe, and then summarize with an S or Z. Hadley Wickham, who wrote this, is from New Zealand, where they spell it with an S. And then I'm going to say average LE, life expectancy, equals mean life X. So I'm saying I want to take the data, I want to group it by continent, and then I want to collapse it down. I want to create a new variable called average LE, which is equal to the mean of life expectancy. So if I run this, I'm going to get 5 observations. I'm getting the average life expectancy across the entire data set in each of the continents. Now you might say, well, I want this by year as well. I don't just want it overall by continent. Super easy. In group by, add a comma, continent, comma, year. Now when I run it, I get 60 observations. It's every combination of continent and year. So I get the average life expectancy in all of Africa in 52, the average life expectancy in all of the Americas in 2002. And now I can plot this using my data. Let's see. Let's add color here. We'll color by continent. Color equals continent. And instead of y being life expectancy, it's going to be average LE, because that's my new variable. And we'll change this to life expectancy by continent. And we'll make this average life expectancy. Run this. And now I'm getting the continent level average lines over time for this sort of collapsed or summarized aggregated data set. So this, if we're looking for big trends, this is a lot easier than looking at those, lines for every single country. And we can see the trajectory is all up from 1952 to 2007. But of course, there's some slight variation in the rates. Asia seems to be going up a little faster than, say, Australia and New Zealand. And then there's some leveling out in Africa here. And of course, there's differentiation in starting points and where they end up. But as a summary graph, I think this is telling you a lot of information. We're taking those 1,700 observations of this data set and turning it into something that's really easy to understand. Life expectancy has been going up over the past 60 years, but there are still big gaps at the continent level in terms of average life expectancy. And that's just a quick preview of the power of some data manipulation before we go into a graph or to get summary statistics. There's so much you can do with it. And this is known as, because this is called a pipe, this is known as a data pipeline. And you could imagine one that goes on for 10 lines to get the data looking exactly how you want it to look.